What's up, you guys? So it's been a hot minute. I'm sorry about that. I got pretty busy with school and work, but I have some more time now, and so I'm pretty excited to be able to focus on making some videos and building some computers again. It's been a couple months since I've actually built a computer, and I am very excited. I have a lot of projects and a lot of builds that I want to try, and I have parts for, just because I've still been watching the used market. And yeah, so we have some stuff in the works. I'm excited to get into that. But yeah, for today, I just want to first say thank you all for subscribing, especially the recent subscribers. It's been really crazy to see the growth. I haven't posted a video in a couple months, and I've still continued to get more views and more subscribers. So thank you guys so much. It really means a lot. Gives me motivation to do more. So I love you, and thanks for being here. If you have comments or suggestions or questions or anything, leave them down in the comments. I answer pretty much all the comments I can get to, so make sure to do that, and you'll probably get a reply. So yeah, so with that, today we're going to do something that's pretty exciting. There's a new game called Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War Warzone. So I don't know, I guess that's what it's called, but it's just the Black Ops update for Warzone, for Call of Duty Warzone. So what I want to do with that being a recent release, essentially what that is you can now play with the Black Ops Cold War weapons within Warzone. And so with that, I guess it's pretty exciting for people. I think there's a map change as well. I don't play the game a ton, and I'm not that great at it. So if that's a little off, don't get too mad at me. But what I want to do today is build a budget PC for Warzone. A few people have asked for this, and I know that it's a newer game. It's a little harder to run than games like Fortnite, things like Valorant, things like Overwatch. I play a decent amount of Overwatch. And those are all relatively easy to run, especially on the budget PCs and Optiplexes that we've done before. So I want to see on a budget what kind of performance we can get in Warzone. Okay, so I guess with that, let's go ahead and jump into the parts. I'm going to get them all up here, and we'll go through them.
Hey, me from the future here. So I was just editing the video and double checking some of the pricing for some of the components that we used, and it looks like some of them have gone up in price a fair bit, and I just wanted to let you guys know this build probably isn't going to be super easy to replicate, so I'm sorry about that. It's pretty annoying. Hopefully in the coming months, after the availability of like newer GPUs and the rush for Christmas presents and stuff like that has kind of died off, we'll be able to get some better used pricing. So we'll see what happens, but I just wanted to make note of that before getting too far into the build. So thanks.
It's kind of wobbly. We might have to fix that. So these are the parts that we got. You might have thought, oh, we're going to use the Dell Optiplex because we've used a lot of those, but we're actually going to use this instead. So I picked this up for $50. This is very similar to a Dell Optiplex. I think it's a Precision T1600. Yeah, that's what it is. So this is another like older Dell workstation. It has a Intel Xeon E3-1230. So that's a 4-core, 8-threaded processor, very similar to something like a Core i7-2600. So like I said, 4 cores, 8 threads. I think the 8 threads might make a difference in Warzone compared to the 4-core, 4-threaded processors, the Core i5s that we've been using in some of the other builds. So I want to see what kind of a difference that makes. And like I said, I got this PC for $50, which I was pretty excited about. I haven't really messed with any Xeons before. I was aware of them. I knew that they're pretty similar to the Core i7s, depending on the variant that you got. But yeah, so it'll be exciting to see what this does for us. So this machine did come with 8 gigs of RAM and a 350 gig hard drive. So with that, we are also going to use a 240 gig SSD. I think I've used this in a previous build as well. Every time I see sales on SSDs, I usually try to pick them up. So a lot of the time I'll pick up the 120 gig ones. If they're around like $18 or so. This one was, I think, 25 at the time I bought it. Probably can get them for a pretty similar price right now, as SSD prices aren't crazy right now, like some other PC components. But yeah, so we're gonna use that. And then for the RAM, like I said, it comes with 8 gigs, but I want to go with 16 gigs. So I picked these up. They're not matching. Usually you want to match your RAM sticks, make sure that they're the same. These are the same timings, so I think it hopefully shouldn't make that big of a difference. I may pop in some other sticks of RAM that I have and see if there is any difference there. But yeah, with that we're gonna add 16 gigs of RAM to it. This RAM together, I think I spent probably $30 on it. I got this stick of RAM used with some other parts for $10, and then I ordered this. I was gonna stick it in a build for somebody else, but they backed out, so I was left with the single 8 gig stick. So together we got 16 gigs. Then we're going to add a power supply. This is another EVGA 450 BR. So it's a 450 watt power supply from EVGA. I got this from EVGA's B-Stock website. This power supply, what I paid for it, made me pretty happy, especially at the time. Power supply prices were kind of crazy, and it was hard to find them. This one I picked up for $18. We're going to use this baby just because to get the graphical performance that we want, it's going to be kind of hard to use some of those lower end graphics cards that we've used in different builds. So like our GTX 1050, 1050 Ti's, those are good, but in Warzone, wanting to see what kind of performance we can get, I want to go with something that has a little more kick, a little more power. So we're going to go with a RX 580. So this card right here, I bought a few months ago. It's been a while. I think it was around right before COVID started, actually. I got this card for $80. It's a pretty awesome card currently. For most modern games, you can get at least 60 FPS, depending on the settings. I know for something maybe like Cyberpunk 2077, I looked into it and I don't think that this performs as well in that game. But I think a lot of the other like more recent games, if you tweak the settings, you can get some good performance out of this still. So if you can find one for cheap, these are not a bad option for upgrading things. Just know that they are power hungry, so you do need to upgrade the power supply as well. That's why we're adding this. Okay, let's go ahead and get into building this. I'll probably just do a quick time lapse. Let me know how you guys like the time lapses, and let's get building. One problem that I found with this build was that the fan shroud of the GPU blocked the bracket from fully closing. I was able to screw in the GPU just fine, but it's something to be aware of. As we get into the benchmarks, I just want to say that I'm not a professional. Both the recording of the gameplay and getting the actual numbers were a struggle this time around. Hopefully they're still useful for you though. I would be lying if I did not say that the performance of this build was a bit underwhelming for me. I was expecting similar performance to a Ryzen build I did earlier in the year, but they didn't really live up to that. That being said, when I take a step back and check my expectations, this build definitely is not bad. Getting into the benchmarks, the numbers for this build were all over the place. I tested and retested multiple times and found there was a ton of variance in performance depending on the spot on the map and also the number of players in the game. With the default settings, which were mostly high settings, I was able to stay above 60 FPS for most of the time. And many games ended with an average FPS above 70 FPS. I tried lowering the settings and resolution to see what kind of FPS we could achieve. After a few tests, it seemed like it gave a boost of about 5 to 10 FPS depending on the settings and the location on the map, but it didn't go much above that. The current gameplay that you've been watching is 1080p low settings. It also does not have VSync on, so you'll probably see a decent amount of tearing in the gameplay. I think personally I'd rather play on high settings than have an extra 10 FPS, but it's definitely up to personal preference. I also compared the system against a 3rd Gen i5 build with an RX 580, and the numbers ended up being fairly similar. Without the extra threads, the i5 was close to or at 100% utilization most of the time, so keep that in mind if you're wanting to make a similar build, but tend to multitask when gaming. Also, I will note that I tested the build out with 8 gigs of RAM, and there was a fair bit of stuttering, but when I added 16, most of that seemed to go away. I also tested out Black Ops Cold War multiplayer to see what kind of performance we could get. And on high settings, we were sitting around 60 FPS on average. I also turned down the settings to low and was able to get around 90 FPS. This made me pretty happy as this is a game that came out late 2020. I tested a few other games just to get a general idea of the performance of this PC. In Fortnite, this PC averaged around 122 FPS with a 1% low of 60 FPS. I also tested Rocket League and got an average FPS of 155 with a 1% low of 77 FPS. Well, this build was super fun to make and test out, and as always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. See ya!